Hi everyone, I'm Yao, and this is my final exam project for Ethnic Studies 1R. First, I'm gonna briefly introduce myself. My name is Yao Long, and you can call me Riley. I used she/her pronouns, and I'm from discussion section A13. I'm an international student from China and majoring in critical gender studies in UCSD. As an Asian student in the United States, I've gained a lot of insight into how race, gender, and labor intersect in this country. And today, I would like to share what I've learned about Asian experiences in the context of land and labor. Reflecting on this class, I've gained a deeper understanding of how race, labor, and immigration intersect with identity and belonging. I will focus on a few key concepts from week 7 and week 9 that stood out to me, specifically race-based nationalism, the industrial plantation economy, and Page Law of 1875. Each of these topics highlighted critical aspects of Asian experiences in the United States. First, I'm gonna briefly introduce race-based nationalism. Race-based nationalism prioritized racial identity in defining membership in a nation, which has been used to justify the subjugation of non-white people and to solidify ruling classes' control over these groups. It was important because it functions as a tool to maintain power structures and reinforce racial hierarchies. It highlights that racial categories are not fixed biological realities, but socially constructed and politically manipulated to serve specific agendas. For example, from the chapter How the Portuguese Became White by Dr. Sasaki, the Portuguese were also recognized as white citizens and called on what they understood to be the population's Anglo-Saxon qualities to defend their reasoning. This was a radical change of heart. The Portuguese, who had not long ago been designated as among the lowest of all population. This risk classification aimed to maintain racial hierarchies and counterbalance the growing population of Asian laborers in the United States. As we discussed in the lecture, non-white groups, particularly Asians and white Hawaiians, were excluded and marginalized, reinforcing racial divisions so that they could impose harsher conditions on Asian immigrants than they could on those European immigrants. Asian workers were especially desirable because the ruling class could use them at a lower cost because they were not protected as citizens under the law. This continues to prove that racial classification in race-based nationalism was used for justification of exploitation of laborers. Then, let's talk about industrial plantation economy. It relied heavily on low-cost labor, creating opportunities for migration, but also reinforced exploitative labor systems and racial hierarchies that shaped Asian experiences in the US. It is quite important because the industrial plantation economy institutionalized racial hierarchies that separated Asian workers from white owners and other ethnic groups. These divisions reinforce stereotypes of Asians as perpetuates foreigners or as exploitable laborers. According to Asian labor in the development of California and Hawaii, the plantation system was created as a means of organizing large-scale agriculture for export, dependent on a cheap, abundant, and politically powerless labor force. This illustrates how the industrial plantation economy in places like Hawaii and California relied heavily on Asian laborers to sustain its operation while maintaining racial and economic hierarchies. For week 9, I would like to talk about Page Law in the 1875. The law banned on free labors and women brought for immoral purposes like prostitution. but it was often used against Chinese immigrants, especially women. The law was created to stop Asians from immigrating to the west coast of the United States without explicitly banning it on the racial grounds. The Page Law is important because it marked it as a significant moment in the U.S. immigration history, because it set a precedent for the exclusion of Asian immigrants, eventually leading to the broader legislation such as the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. And institutionalized racial and gender discrimination against Asian and especially Chinese women. According to chapter White Entitlement and Other People's Crimes, the Page Law excluded Asian women from immigrating to the United States on the basis of both status and conduct. This highlights how the Page Law institutionalized discrimination, defining who could be deemed acceptable for the U.S. citizenship and belonging. In the lecture, we talk about the Page Law, which specifically targets Chinese women to prevent them from giving birth to their children in the United States, and which serves as both racism and sexism against Chinese women. Looking back on this class, I realized how much it has shaped my perspective on identity and social structure. This course has profoundly impacted my understanding on topics like indigenous and settler colonial land. I've realized that settler colonialism is not a historical event. It's an ongoing system influencing race and gender relations in the United States today. Learning about Asian American history and the intersections of labor and land has motivated me to challenge the stereotypes and fight against Asian hate in my daily life. As I continued my studies in ethnic studies, I hope to contribute to building greater awareness and advocacy for the marginalized communities. That's all of my final projects, and thank you for watching. I hope you can also be interested in topics of land and labor and maybe join ethnic studies in the future.